All right, so we're back with another PvP build, and today we're going to be talking about the spear. But before we get into the spear, don't forget to leave a like rating and a comment down below about what other content you want to see in the channel. And if you really like the video and the stuff I do here, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and maybe become a channel member and come check out the streams that I try to stream pretty much every single day. But now that we got the intro out of the way, let's hop into the actual gameplay and start talking about the build. So I want to preface this by saying that this build is made with the spear in mind as the primary weapon. Do I personally believe that the spear is a really good primary weapon? I think there are other weapons that do the primary weapon slot better, and I think that the spear is better fit as like a support secondary weapon role to like a bow or something. But I think there are some niche avenues you can take the spear where it does actually fit into a role where it can be used as a primary weapon, and I feel like I found almost the perfect build for it being a very powerful primary weapon in conjunction with the secondary, which would be the warhammer. All right, so now that I've prefaced that, let's start talking about the goal of this build, or the objective of what you're doing with this build, and that is basically becoming like a CC monster where you start to infinitely chain your skills with aggressive maneuvering and refreshing jab. As you can see, you can start to kind of make the connection. All spear ability cooldowns are reduced by 10% on the second hit of the light attack chain. And then the first successful hit with an ability within 2 seconds of dodging reduces all spear cooldowns by 20%. And as you can see, the cooldown are like 10 seconds, 12 seconds, 15 seconds. And the way that it works is that you initiate the combat, you drop a sweep, you then dodge, drop your secondary skill, reducing the cooldown of this by 20%. Then you dodge again, drop your third skill, reducing both of these by 20%. You know, chain a couple light attacks in between those hits after dodging, reduce the cool, or do your third skill, or redo your first skill again that is now off cooldown, reducing the cooldown of the other two skills. And then you kind of understand what basically starts to happen. With the cooldown reduction, you start to just skill after skill after skill, dodge, 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 and you start doing a ton of damage, right? And you guys might be asking, why do you use these 3 specific skills? And I'm going to get to that right now. The reason I selected sweep, perforate, and volt kick over something like potentially javelin, which I had in an earlier iteration of the build, is because you don't want to have reserve strength. Reserve strength deal 25% increased damage while at full stam directly contradicts the whole point of dodging constantly and tethering, or like mixing dodges in between each of your attacks, because you're not going to be at full stam ever. You shouldn't, right? Because you're going to be dodging a lot. So you want to have exploited weakness, and you don't want to use stuff like javelin because it doesn't really apply a debuff, right? And it also makes it harder to tether in between skills because you have to pull it up and then throw it. And if it misses, it doesn't really work. On the other hand, perforate applies a rend, which is really useful because it stacks multiple times, which lets you do more damage, which is also a debuff, which helps towards the 10% here. And you have stuff like Volt Kick that stuns your opponent, Sweep that knocks them down. And in conjunction with your Hammer, which could be like your entry skill, you can apply stuff like Weaken and other debuffs. And you can start to see how this becomes like a 2-weapon combo where you enter the battle with the Hammer, throwing down the Hammer skill, switch over to your spear, and then begin doing your like infinite looping combo of like skill after dodge and skills dodge, and dealing a ton of damage because you're going to be almost max stacked on your exploited weakness. You're going to quickly, let me hit this over here, you're going to have the opal gem, which does 15% damage while your stam is not full, so you're going to be dealing an extra 15%, which basically covers, let me go back to the spear, which basically covers this, because this is 25, but you're going to have an extra 20 here plus the 15 there, so you're basically going to be having this while also being able to do all this cool like dodging, cooldown resets, skill sort of stuff, right? The one thing I will say about this setup, and you'll see in the gameplay, that it isn't the easiest thing to actually execute because it requires a lot of like effort and skill and knowing when to properly do things, because you aren't just slanging and banging with like a great axe, a hammer, and just throwing, just like face rolling people, right? This actually requires, I want to say, a little bit more finesse than normal, right? But with all that being said, and now that you understand the 3 skills and why I picked them and why I picked the Impaler tree and all that sort of stuff, let's talk a little bit about a couple of these side perks, right? These little secondary traits you're going to be picking up. So basically with the side traits, you're just going to be picking up extra damage and extra like stamina regen and stuff like that. Restore 20 stamina on crit hit. Light attacks have 5% increased crit chance. Crit chance is increased by 15% when applying a bleed, which you're using a thrust weapon, which applies bleed. Crit hit extends the duration of your spear debuff and damage over time effects by 20%. So you will have a longer rend, longer weaken, and all that sort of stuff. Longer bleeds. Stamina regen rate is increased by 30% when your stamina is below 50. So you will be dodging around a lot, getting your stamina back up, dodging around a lot. Crit chance is increased by 10% when attacking targets at least 3 meters away. So like, there's like a bunch of like things that increase your damage, stamina regen, extend the debuff timer, so you're doing more damage with your exploded weakness. All in all, I think this is probably the best build after doing a ton of testing that I could find, or that I think is out there for this type of spear primary weapon usage, right? All right, so that's basically it for the build. Let's head back, and now I want to talk about the side stuff, the rest of the build itself, right? Not so much the way you set up the skills, but stuff like the attributes and the armor and all that sort of stuff, right? So let's head over to the attributes, and this is actually not correct. So let me respec this. You'd want to do this more so. Let's do this right. Boop, boop, boop. You'd want to hit this. I think this is a better place to be at currently, right? So you're gonna hit 300 dex, so you get all the like little check marks or checkpoints or break points, whatever you want to call them. 100 con, which I think is pretty good, you know, just to have a little bit more resilience, a little bit more tankiness, so you're not just like running around with 5k HP, so you're not just getting one tap. And then 50 strength is actually really good because the spear and the hammer both scale off of strength. Obviously the spear is secondary scaling off of strength, so it's 0.65, but it's pretty decent. And then the hammer is like only strength scale, so like you can still hit a little bit, but this does something that's pretty good. 5% damage to melee weapon light attacks, right? So you're increasing your damage on both of your weapons by 5%, which is pretty decent to hit that little checkpoint, and I think it's worth it personally, right? So this is like your kind of like sitting, right? Maybe you can have 10 more decks, because you can be at like a perfect setup would be, I think it's 460, and then you eat 40 food. So you can put either 10 more into con potentially, or 10 more into strength, and then when you eat strength food, you can hit the 100 marker. But I don't think hitting the 100 marker is really that great, because 10% damage to melee heavy attacks. With this build, you're not really going to be doing a lot of heavy attacks. You're going to be doing a lot of light attacks and threading together skills. So I don't really think that that is the best option. It might just be hitting 50 more points into dex, or potentially hitting the 150 break point for con, which reduces the crit damage by 10%. That's a personal preference. I would probably put it into dex just to like do more damage as a whole overall. All right, so now that we covered the attributes, let's actually head over to the armor. And this is the first time I get to talk about armor with a melee weapon that isn't full con heavy void bent. It's full, actually not full, because I have one con piece up here, but it's pretty much the medium set, right? It's the medium set. And you might be asking, well, why not use light, right? Medium gives you one extra dodge roll. You know what I mean? It's not a roll, but you get what I'm going with this. So you want to go medium, and you can still have one of the heavy sets while still being medium. So I have 4 dex void bent pieces, obviously with onyxes, because the great axe is still one of the best weapons of the game. And then I have a heavy head, which has 25 con. And this allows you to kind of like have medium weight, right? So you can dodge roll 3 times, so you can do the whole combo-y stuff, right? And still be relatively tanky. You know, I have 1,000 physical, 1,000 elemental. I have like, I think I have like 9,000 HP, as you can see down there. Yeah, 9,300 HP. So, and then obviously with the spear itself, you run the opal, which I said earlier. All right, so now that we've covered the armor and the attributes, I think that pretty much covers everything. I explained the playstyle. You want to be threading the needle and like dodging skill, dodge skill, get your cooldown resets and all that sort of stuff. So I think that's pretty much gonna wrap the video up. All right, so now that we're back in the full cam, guys, thank you so much for all the love and support that you guys have been displaying on all the content that I've been producing. It's been really great making all this new world content for everyone, you know, to improve and learn about the game, become better. Like I said, in the comments, let me know what other type of content you want to see. Don't forget to check out the stream. I try to stream every single day. I've been mixing in different games other than New World because New World's kind of been in a little bit of a slump. We're really kind of waiting for the server merger to happen, right? Because whenever that happens, the game will kind of like breathe new life. New players from different servers will come in. Potentially new factions will have like strong players that'll compete for zones and stuff like that, right? But I don't want this video to drag on too long, so I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.
Ride with me if you ride with me, you can slide with me if you feel like 550 on the 5 sticky, come get high with me, that's a deal, right? Ride with me if you ride with me, you can slide with me.